The sun had no mercy that morning. Heat rose from the dirt like breath from a dying animal. The auction block sat in the center of town, splintered wood worn smooth by other people's tragedies. People lined up, their faces set, some looking away as if pretending not to see. At the end of the line, two girls stood apart. The older one held the smaller's hand so tight her knuckles had gone white. The little one's dress had been pink once. Now it was the color of dust and old grief. She kept calling for Mama, a thin wail that got swallowed by the buzz of the crowd. The older girl didn't answer, only brushed dirt from the child's cheek with a thumb cracked and red from work, then pulled her closer when a sharp-nosed woman in the blue bonnet shoved them forward. "Don't let their size fool you," the woman snapped. "The older one's stubborn, but she learns. The little one don't talk much, only to her." She folded her arms like she was holding something that could bite. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Next lot. Two healthy girls, no known disease. Can carry buckets, mind a porch." He motioned with a jerk of his chin. The little one pressed her face into her sister's leg and sobbed harder. "She's not ready," the older girl said, voice dry as cracked earth. "She's only 3. A man in a brown vest stepped up. He had wide hands and the look of someone who had carried weight more than words. "I'll take the big one," he said, cheap and flat, like it was business. "Don't need the crybaby." The older girl tightened her grip on the small wrist. "Don't take her," she said louder now. "She's only 3. The crowd shifted. Some leaned in, some found other things to stare at. The bonnet woman hissed and shoved the little one toward the man. She fell hard, knees scraping the wood. The sob cut sharp, then still when the man moved, slow, quiet, without a word. He bent and picked the little one up. She didn't struggle. Her body went limp like trust had been the only thing left to give. The older girl stood frozen, her hands still where her sister had been. "You bidding, sir?" the auctioneer asked. The man pulled 2 silver coins from his pocket. They fell into the dust without flourish. One covered the smaller girl. The woman scoffed. "You want the older? That's more." He didn't look away. He looked at the older girl. She was trembling but held herself straight. Then he looked back to the child in his arms. "Both," he said. His voice cut through the crowd. "I'll take both." The woman's mouth tightened. She reached into a cloth pouch and drew more silver, enough to buy a wagon and a horse. She laid it on the board, then turned without waiting for argument. The older girl climbed down by herself. He didn't offer a hand. She didn't ask. They moved through the thick quiet, past the church fence, past the trough, past whispers that tried to stick to them like burrs. The little one's head lolled against his chest. Her breathing evened. The cries faded into a soft, uncertain silence. They walked until the town's heat faded and scrub grass took over. The older girl finally spoke. "What's your name?" she asked, like she was testing wind for direction. He looked ahead, then back. "Hatch," he said. "Is that first or last?" "It's enough," she muttered, eyes on the girl he carried. "She has bad dreams. Wakes up screaming. Mama's gone. I don't think she understands yet." "I know," he said. He didn't explain anything. He just kept walking in rhythm with her small, unsteady steps. The sun was falling when they reached the cabin, low and sharp against the ridge. The porch was swept. The windows held the last light. Inside, it was neat and thin. One chair, a small table, the scent of old smoke. He set the little one on his bed and covered her with a blanket. She didn't stir. The older girl stood in the doorway, watching like someone waiting for permission that never came. "You hungry?" Hatch asked. She nodded. He handed her a piece of dry bread. She ate slowly, with both hands, like she was measuring each bite. She didn't look at the coat hanging by the door. It was pale blue wool, softened by time, the only thing that smelled like someone who used to be here. "I won't touch her things," she said finally, barely moving her lips. Then she added softer, but she left her smell. Hatch didn't answer. He just stared at the small shape on the bed, then let the silence settle around them like the coming night. The next morning came quiet, soft like it didn't want to wake anyone. Light spilled over the ridge, slow and pale. A rooster called out from far off. Hatch was already outside, his boots scuffing across the porch. He didn't open the door, just set down a tin cup of milk a cloth-wrapped slice of cornbread, and a basin of warm water. Then he walked off toward the barn, hands in his pockets. The older girl moved slow when she woke. Her legs hurt from the days before. She peeked through the door, saw the milk and bread, and brought everything inside. She dipped the cloth in the warm water and cleaned her sister's feet, careful not to wake her. The little one whimpered once, then went quiet again, her thumb near her mouth. The older girl sat against the wall and ate half the bread. The other half she tucked under the pillow. That night, Hatch brought another blanket without a word. On the third morning, she found him cleaning his boots on the porch. She sat beside him, swinging her bare feet. "Why do you live alone?" she asked. "I don't," he said, eyes on his boots. "You did before?" "Yes." "What was her name?" she asked, looking straight ahead. He didn't answer, just kept scrubbing. "She left gentle," the girl said. "Not everyone gets that." He paused, then looked up. "How do you know?" She folded her apron before she went. "Mama used to say women who fold their aprons mean to come back or they loved what they were leaving." He looked at her a long time. "What was your mama like?" "Brave," she said. "Real. She'd braid our hair even when her hand shook. Kept a tin of sugar under the floorboard. Said life needs sweetness even when it don't earn it." He blinked slow and turned away. Behind them, the little one toddled barefoot onto the porch. Her blanket dragged behind her. She didn't cry when the wind hit her, just sat beside her sister and wrapped the blanket around them both. That night, Hatch laid 2 new pillows on the bed. The stitching was crooked, but done with care. No one said thank you, but they slept better. The next morning, a dog showed up. No collar, ribs sharp under its fur. One ear bent. It lay down near the woodpile. Hatch gave it water. It didn't move until the little one offered a crust of bread and whispered, "You can stay if you're quiet." They called it Tatter. Days moved slow like syrup in winter. Hatch fixed the fence. The older girl sorted dry beans. When a nail bent, she straightened it with a stone. When smoke backed from the stove, the little one sat in Hatch's lap and stared at the fire. No one asked where they came from. No one asked what happened before. But one night, something changed. The older girl found a box under the bed. It wasn't hidden, just resting in the dark. Inside was a brush with hair still in it, a letter that had never been sent, and a blue ribbon just like the coat near the door. She closed the lid gently and brought it to Hatch, who was whittling on the porch. "I didn't break nothing," she said, "but I saw what was in there." He looked at her. "That was hers." "I figured," she said. "She's still here." "In some ways." She sat beside him. "You can leave things and still love them." "I know." She looked at the stars. "We won't stay forever. Maybe just long enough to mend." He didn't speak, but when the wind blew through the pine boards, the dog lifted his head and lay it back down slow. A week passed. Then one morning, Hatch hitched the wagon and rode into town. When they got there, he gave the older girl 2 coins. "Get a ribbon and a flower," he said. She stared at the coins like she didn't trust them. The little one stayed in the wagon, holding tight to Tatter's ear. Inside the store, eyes followed her. A woman near the counter squinted. "You one of those auction girls?" The older girl didn't answer. She just slid the coins across the counter. The shopkeeper weighed the flour and dropped it into a sack. "Ranchers are kind sometimes. They take in strays," the woman said. The girl didn't blink. "We ain't dogs." The woman smiled, thin and mean. "Didn't say you were. Just folks talk." "I know," the girl said. "They always do." Back in the wagon, she didn't say a word. That night, Hatch lit a lantern and opened an old ledger he hadn't touched in years. He wrote 2 names inside. No last names, just first names, spelled how he remembered hearing them. Later, as he passed their room, he heard the older girl whisper, "If we're quiet, they'll forget to hate us." The little one didn't answer, but her hand reached across the blanket and found her sister's. The next morning, a man came. He wore a clean shirt, clean boots, and a church badge. He carried an envelope. Hatch met him at the gate. "There have been questions," the man said. "About the girls. About you. I figured. You planning to keep them?" "I'm planning to feed them. Keep them warm. Teach them birds' names. That enough for now." The man didn't argue. He just nodded and left. His horse kicked up dust. That night, the older girl sat on the porch, tying knots in a string. "Do you think people know when you're trying your best?" she asked. "Sometimes," Hatch said. And when they don't, you keep trying. Inside, the little one was drawing with charcoal on a scrap of wood. She made 3 figures: a dog, a house, and the sun. She didn't show it to anyone, just slid under the bed. In town, the talk got worse. A church woman saw Hatch buying boots for the girls and told the pastor's wife. A man from the saloon said Hatch smiled once now, so something must have changed. One day, Hatch was gone. 2 boys followed the girls along the fence. They threw stones, said ugly things. The older girl didn't cry. She just took her sister inside, locked the door, and sat with her back against it until Hatch returned. That night she asked, "If they try to take us, what'll you do?" He didn't answer right away, just added another log to the fire. The wind chime outside rang hard, like it wanted to speak but didn't know the words. The girls didn't sleep easy. Hatch didn't sleep at all. Morning brought frost. The dog barked once. Hatch stirred the stove. The older girl braided her sister's hair, soft and careful. "I think she's starting to believe we're safe," she said. Hatch nodded. "I ain't there yet," she added. "I know. Takes time." She looked down at her hands. "We never had a place that didn't want to trade us for something." Hatch put the coffee tin down and met her eyes. "No one here's for sale." She nodded slow. "That's new." Her steps, as she walked away, were still heavy, but less so. Later, Hatch found an envelope under the door. It was sealed with wax, church colors. He opened it, read it twice, then tucked it into the edge of the stove, far from the flame. On the table was the drawing the little one had made. This time she'd left it out, maybe on purpose. He traced the figure that was meant to be him. It had a smile. Next to it were words in shaky lines. "Our home." He stood still for a long time, holding the paper, then whispered something soft, something like a promise only the walls could hear. 3 weeks passed since the church letter came. Hatch didn't reply. He knew silence could say more than words. But the town didn't forget. One Monday morning, a buggy rolled up the dirt road, pulled by a gray mule with a tail like a crooked rope. 2 people sat inside, Pastor Alcaw and Mrs. Tabitha Gaines. Her bonnet looked sharp enough to slice air. She held the reins. Inside the cabin, the girls were folding laundry. Hatch didn't call them out. "Mr. Hatch," the pastor said as he stepped down, "we come peacefully." "I didn't hear any gunshots," Hatch said, rising to his feet. "May we sit?" Mrs. Gaines asked, her smile tight as her gloves. "There's chairs," Hatch said, nodding toward the porch. They sat. The dog didn't bark but didn't move either. The cold had a bite, not enough for snow, but enough to see your breath. The pastor tugged his collar. "Seems the town's curious," he said. "2 girls living under your roof, alone." Hatch didn't speak. Mrs. Gaines cleared her throat. "Everyone knows your reputation. Honest man. But perception is powerful." "They were being sold like cattle," Hatch said, steady. "I paid so they wouldn't be." "We're not questioning your heart," she said. "But the structure, the setup. 2 young girls, no papers, no kinfolk. That's what's in question. They sleep in the old room. Door stays open. I don't drink. I don't touch. I feed them. I warm them. That not enough." The pastor looked uncomfortable. "It should be, but some think they need to be placed legally." Watched. No kin came forward. "I don't need paper to treat a child right." Mrs. Gaines reached into her purse. "Still, we're asked to give you this." She held out another envelope. "Request for formal hearing." Not a threat, just law. Hatch didn't take it. "I don't do well in rooms with men swinging gavels." "Then you'll need someone to speak for you. Someone the town trusts." "I don't need their trust," Hatch said. Mrs. Gaines smiled faintly. "But the girls might." Just then, the door opened. The older girl stepped out, arms full of warm shirts. Her hair was neatly braided, tied at the ends with sky blue ribbon. Her eyes met Mrs. Gaines', steady and unshaken. "I'll put these away," she said quietly, then disappeared back inside. Mrs. Gaines watched her go. "She's clever," she murmured. "She's been through fire," Hatch said. "Fire makes iron." They stayed a moment longer, didn't drink the offered coffee, and left without another word. The buggy's bell clinked as they rolled away. That night, the cabin was still. Too still. The older girl stirred the stew. The little one sat on the floor, brushing the dog's fur with a wooden fork, humming softly. "They'll try to take us," the older girl said, not looking up. "They'll try," Hatch replied. She glanced at him. "Would you stop them?" "I'd stand in their way." "That's not the same." He nodded. Truth settled heavier than hope. She ladled the stew into 3 bowls, wiped the rim of his with her sleeve. "You got any family?" "No one left." "Why'd you pick us?" "I didn't," he said. "You were already mine when I saw you." She froze. Later, as she tucked her sister under the quilt, she whispered, "He said I was already his." The little one yawned. "You're mine too," she mumbled, drifting off. Outside, the wind pressed against the cabin like it was looking for a way in. 3 days passed. Then Sunday came. The church bell rang early. The girls wore mismatched dresses, one too short, one with a crooked bow. Hatch wore his cleanest shirt, left his hat behind. Inside, the church was full of perfume and stiff glances. They sat in the back. No one spoke to them. Not during hymns. Not during the handshake of peace. But when the little one heard, "Come thou fount," she sang. Quiet and unsure, but sweet. After church, in the yard, a woman patted the little girl's head. "Pretty child," she said. Then to the older one, "But aren't you a handful?" "I am," the girl replied, calm. The woman blinked, flustered. "Well, you'll learn manners." The girl didn't answer. A boy from the school tossed a stone near their feet. "Not at them, just close." A warning. Hatch saw, said nothing, just picked up the stone and slipped it into his coat. That night, the older girl asked, "Will you send us away?" "No, but if they take you," he knelt beside her, "then we'll make so much noise they can't pretend not to hear us." She nodded slow. "I could run. I'd find you. You bring us back?" "No," he said. "I'd ask to come with you." Tears rose in her eyes, but didn't fall. She pulled something from her dress. A dented locket. Inside was a dried sprig of something faintly green. She said it was mint, the girl whispered. Smelled like safety. Hatch didn't touch it, just nodded. That night, she put the locket under her pillow. For the first time, she slept past dawn. Frost came earlier than anyone expected that year. It crept in through the porch boards, wrapped around the windows, and made the chimney groan. Hatch sealed the cracks with burlap and stacked firewood near the stove. At night, he mended old quilts by lamplight. His fingers worked slow, stiff from cold and age. The girls grew quieter as the frost thickened, their laughter tucked away like something too fragile to use. On the 3rd night, the older girl stood at the window, her forehead pressed to the glass, watching her breath fog the world. "It's getting colder," she said. "Maybe that'll keep them away." Hatch stirred the fire. "They've weathered worse for less." She didn't turn around. "They don't care we're safe. They just care we're not theirs. You're not anyone's to take." She didn't answer, just kept staring into the dark like it might answer her first. The little one's sleep turned restless again. She cried out in the night, started biting her nails, a habit she'd dropped since they came. Hatch found her once under the table, hands at her skirt, whispering, "If we're quiet, maybe we'll disappear." "No one's disappearing," Hatch said gently. She didn't look up. Mama did. 2 days later, Hatch rode to town for supplies. When he returned, something felt wrong. The fire was low. No stew. No sound of small feet or wooden forks dragged across the floor. The dog paced in circles, nose to the door, whining soft. They were gone. He stepped outside. Frost sparkled on the ground like it had something to say. 2 sets of footprints led to the trees. One small, one bigger, steady and slow. They hadn't run. They had just walked away. Hatch didn't yell, didn't panic. He saddled the mule, tied a blanket behind the seat, and followed. The woods were quiet. Every branch snap sounded too loud. After about a mile, he found the little one's ribbon caught on a branch, sky blue, trembling in the wind. They'd stopped in the cedar grove, where a creek used to run in spring. The water was gone, just cold stones now. Under a rocky ledge, the girls were huddled tight. The older girl had wrapped herself around the younger, who slept with her thumb in her mouth. Her cheeks were red, her nose running from the cold. The older one looked up when Hatch appeared but said nothing. He didn't scold, didn't ask why. He sat beside them, opened the blanket, and draped it over their shoulders. The little one stirred but didn't wake. "I told her we should wait for a full moon," the older girl whispered. "But she said we had to go before someone came." "I figured you'd come this way," he said. "Close enough to be found." far enough to pretend no one would. She nodded, eyes still on the ground. She heard it again. Someone saying you bought us. They were bought things. She asked if that made her like the cow in the pen. Said she didn't want to be meat. Hatch's jaw tightened. She's not. You're not. But we were. He didn't lie. Just sat with her, steady as a tree. She said she didn't want you to see her sold again. Said if she went far enough, maybe you'd forget her. I won't, he said. Not now. Not ever. She looked at him. Her face cracked open. Not fear, not anger. Something deeper. Like she'd been holding her breath for too long. If they come, and they say we don't belong, will you let us go? He didn't answer right away. Just reached out, placed a hand on the blanket over her shoulder. If you go, he said finally, I won't stop you. But I won't stay behind either. Her face broke, not in sadness, but relief too big to carry. One tear slipped down. She wiped it fast like it had betrayed her. They walked home slow. Hatch carried the little one. The older girl walked beside him, holding the rest. At the cabin, the dog barked once, circled them, then curled by the hearth. Hatch laid the little one in bed. The older girl folded the blanket and put it back on the shelf. You didn't yell, she said. No. You didn't get mad. No. Why not? Because leaving doesn't always mean betrayal. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's just a question waiting for the right answer. She nodded, and you answered it. That night, after the fire burned low, Hatch opened the ledger again. Under their names, he added one more line. Not a sentence, just a phrase. Stayed even when she wanted to run. He didn't know she'd seen him write it, standing in the hallway's shadow. Didn't see the way she looked at him then, like someone seeing something sacred. She said nothing, but before she went to bed, she took her sky blue ribbon and slipped it into his coat pocket. In the morning, when Hatch found it, he didn't say a word either. Just folded it gently, placed it in the drawer beside the carving knife, and stepped outside. The frost was starting to melt. Snow began falling that day, not heavy, not wild. Just soft, slow flakes drifting like they were asking if it was all right to land. The wind carried them across the ridge, over the barn, and down to the porch, where the wind chime made of spoons tapped a low, slow tune. Inside, the girls were stringing popcorn and cranberries. Their fingers moved careful and quiet, like they were sewing hope into something solid. Hatch sat nearby with a cup of coffee gone cold. He didn't speak much. None of them did. The hearing was 3 days away, and even though no one mentioned it, the silence between them had grown round and tender, like it held its own kind of fear. They moved around each other gently, like people in a house made of glass that had somehow never shattered. Then came the knock. 3 soft raps. Not sharp, not rushed, just enough. It was the pastor again, alone, hat in his hands. Snow's late this year, he said, stepping inside when Hatch opened the door. Frost tried to warn us, Hatch replied. I spoke to the board, the pastor said, voice low. Some want papers, some want blood, but a few of us, we just want to understand. The older girl stood in the hallway, arms crossed. Understand what? That this isn't just pity, the pastor said gently. That this is something real, not a man trying to fix a wound he can't name. I never tried to fix them, Hatch said, standing beside her. Only try to keep others from breaking them more. The pastor looked around, the fire burning low. A blanket folded on the chair's arm. A charcoal drawing on the wall. 3 stick figures, a dog, and the sun. It wasn't a rich home, but it breathed. It held warmth like a cupped hand. I'll say what I can, the pastor said. He didn't stay for coffee, just nodded once and left. The girl stood still after the door closed, like she didn't know whether she'd just been defended or dismissed. That night, Hatch pulled both girls' chairs closer to the table. They ate stew and warm cornbread. The little one fell asleep with her head on Hatch's knee. The older girl sat quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. If they say no, if they make us leave, I won't fight them, Hatch said softly. Not with fists. I know, but will you still stand between us and shame? As long as I breathe. She looked at him, then really looked. Her lips shook. I'm not scared for me, she whispered. I'm scared for her. If they make her start over again, she might stop trying. Might think hope's not worth it anymore. She won't be alone, Hatch said. That I swear. 2 more days passed. Then came the ride into town. The snow had thickened now. Fence posts were blanketed, rooftops buried. The wagon moved slow. The older girl held her sister close under the quilt. Tatter ran behind them until the town swallowed him in drifting white. The courthouse was cold, gray, and loud in all the wrong ways. Boots echoed. Papers shuffled. People whispered. A woman in a brown coat led them to a bench. Hatch didn't hold their hands. He just sat close enough they didn't need to ask. The elders entered. Everyone stood. The pastor spoke first. His voice was clear, measured. Then the woman from the church stood. The one who'd narrowed her eyes once. This time, she cleared her throat and said the girls were always polite. Always clean. Always holding hands. Then Hatch rose. He didn't say much. I didn't rescue them, he said. I gave them a place where they could rescue each other. The room fell still. Then the older girl stood. They're not just words on paper, she said. We're not just girls without people. We have him. We have each other. If that's not family, then maybe the word don't mean what you think it does. No one interrupted her. Not even the ones who wanted to. When they returned to the ranch, the snow had stopped. The wind chime was singing again. Inside, the little one pointed to the drawing still hanging on the wall. She picked up a bit of charcoal and added a new figure, smaller, with a circle above its head. That's me, she said, but with a crown. Why a crown? Hatch asked, watching her. Because I'm safe now. He turned away then, rubbed at his eyes like the fire had smoked too high. He didn't see the older girl rise, didn't hear her step across the room, but he felt her hand when she placed something in his. It was the locket, open. Inside was a fresh sprig of mint, and a tiny sketch of the cabin drawn in the same shaky lines as the wall drawing. He looked at it, then at her. We don't have a name for this yet, she said, but it feels like home. Outside, the wind moved through the pines, and the chime whispered its agreement. The day after the hearing, the sky stayed gray, but the snow didn't come back. Just cold air and quiet. The girls slept in, the kind of sleep you get only when the fear loosens its grip. Hatch stepped out onto the porch with his coffee, boots heavy on the planks. He looked out the yard where the girls had left small trails in the snow the day before. The dog lay curled beside the door, tail twitching at a dream only dogs understand. Inside, the older girl stood at the stove, heating the last of the stew. Her sister sat at the table, legs swinging, humming soft as she arranged buttons by color. The drawing was still pinned to the wall, and now the new stick figure with the crown had company, a tiny bird drawn beside it. The girl hadn't said what it meant, but Hatch didn't ask. Some things don't need explaining. After breakfast, Hatch pulled the ledger from the drawer. The girls leaned over to see what he was doing. He flipped past their names and the line he'd written before, then added a new one. They stayed, he wrote. And so did I. The older girl blinked, but didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her hand moved to the locket around her neck, fingers brushing it lightly. Later, they walked into town as a family, not for business, not for court, just for bread and thread. I still followed them, but no one said much. The boys who'd thrown stones before looked down when they passed. The storekeeper gave them an extra length of ribbon without being asked. The woman from the church nodded once, tight-lipped but respectful. Outside, the little one tugged Hatch's sleeve. Can I have a book? You know how to read it? Not yet. We'll work on that. She smiled, wide and honest, and her mittened hand slipped into his. Back at the cabin, they hung the ribbon from a hook by the window. The light caught it just right, blue and bright, like a piece of sky had decided to stay. That night, they made stew from scratch. The older girl peeled potatoes while the younger snapped green beans. Hatch didn't do much, just watched, handed things over when asked, listened to the laughter that was finally starting to rise like it belonged there. Before bed, the little one drew something new. A barn, a wagon, a chicken that looked like a cloud. She held it up, proud. What's that? Hatch asked. It's all the things that didn't leave, she said. Later, after they were asleep, Hatch sat by the fire with his coffee warm this time. He opened the locket again. Mint still green, the sketch still careful. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, he wasn't worried. The wind moved soft across the porch. The chime whispered again, not loud, just steady. And inside, the cabin held the kind of quiet that isn't empty, but full. Full of breath. Full of memory. Full of home.